Hello and welcome to Face to Face on Channel One Television. Face to Face is a weekly show where we bring you one-on-one interviews with the people who make the news and ask them the questions that are relevant for our progress as a nation. My name is Umaru Sandamado, and my guest today is someone who has been working with soldiers for the past 8 years. He's not a soldier himself. I'll introduce him when I come back. So my guest was a teacher. I don't know if he's still a teacher, and he has been commanding soldiers. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but he's been Minister for Defense for the past 8 years. One of the ministries that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the president at the time, did not think he needed to reshuffle. He's also the member of parliament representing the people of Bimbilla in the northern region. He's one of the few MPs who were lucky on the MPP side to return to the House. The Honorable Dominic Nitiwul, you're welcome to Face to Face.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Are you still a teacher?
Of course, a teacher has. Everybody is a teacher. I've been a teacher all my life, and I'm proud to be one. I've always said that impacting knowledge to the younger generation to take over has been the greatest thing, the gift that God can give. Mm-hmm. It's not everybody who has the tenacity, the wisdom, the courage, the ability to be able to transmit what you think should be the best thing to a child, for that child to understand and pick it up and become somebody like you one day. It's not. And the teachers who do that, it's one of the underrated jobs in the world, but they are the fundamental building blocks of everybody. It's like a mother. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The job that a mother would do to enable a child grow up to become somebody is the most underrated job. So teaching is like that. You take the place of a mother. So you are keeping that child from 7 o'clock to sometimes 4 or 5. You literally run the life of that child, and if you don't do a proper job, that child is never going to be a good person. If you do a proper job, that child grows to be the best human being on life.
Congratulations on your re-election. I know it was a tough one.
Of course. What happened in 2024 is similar to what happened in 2016 in a different way. So there are things that may not be repeating itself for the future. So if you say it was a tough one, of course.
You have been the president's minister for 8 years at the Ministry of Defense. There was a wide call for him to reshuffle his government. He did at a certain point, but you were untouched. What would you have been doing right as minister that he trusted his own? And I think I remember you were his spokesperson at a point when he was in opposition.
No, I was not really the spokesperson. Mustafa had always been his spokesperson, but I was one of the 3 key people who was around him around that time. To become a minister for defense, you must have the trust of the commander-in-chief. I mean, it's like giving his own key to you to be holding whilst he's traveled or he's even in there with a wife or something. That's the type of trust that someone must have in you before they can give you that portfolio called Minister for Defense, especially around this time where turbulence is everywhere in West Africa and people misbehave in the name of maybe civilians not having the ability to govern properly, and so yes, believing that they can govern properly and that kind of stuff. So before you are named Minister for Defense, you must have the absolute trust of the president, and to keep you for 8 years simply has one thing. The president has absolute confidence and trust in you, otherwise he's not going to keep you. But he will also keep you because you are doing what he believes you are doing well. If you are not doing well, you won't even last 2 years.
You'll be gone.
You'll be gone. And people assume Akufo-Addo didn't do reshuffles. He did not do the conventional reshuffles people see. But I think he's one of the presidents who did more reshuffles than any other president. And we can compare notes. There were only 5 ministers who stayed the 8 years.
Oh, really?
We started with about 43, 44 or something. Only 5 of us stayed the 4 years continuously in our portfolio. 5. Myself, the National Security Minister, the Minister for Transport, the Minister for Communication, and the Minister for Foreign Affairs.
No, Rhodes stayed until...
Rhodes never stayed.
Okay, not to the end.
No.
Health also left at a point.
They didn't stay. Interior left at a point.
Yeah.
I'm saying to you that
so for the whole 8 years, it was just 5?
Just 5. That for the ministers of state, there were just 5 people who stayed in the... Either the person was removed, or he was shifted to another place, or he was not reappointed, but only 5 ministers stayed throughout continuously. Not many presidents did that. There are many presidents who kept 8, 10, even the current president kept more than 10. He kept just 5 of us.
See, what has the journey been for you at Ministry of Defense? How has the journey been? If one day your story is going to be told, what will be the high achievements of Dominic Nitiwul, the teacher from a small village in Bimbela who became MP, who became defense minister? What has he done differently for us?
So I was given a task to ensure that the armed forces remain professional. I was given a task to ensure that we modernize the armed forces. I was given a task to ensure that we re-equip the armed forces. I was given a task to ensure that the morale and welfare of the soldiers are taken care of. I was also given a task to ensure that properties of the armed forces, including lands, including vehicles and everything, stay intact. And if I want to be judged, these are the areas I need to be judged. And I'm not praising myself, but if you ask the soldiers, you go to Burma camp, you go to the Navy training school, you go to the Air Force training school, you go to the Army training school, you go within the soldiers themselves, from roles to welfare to housing to buildings to equipment, you will realize that this government has done more than enough. It may not be ultimate, it may not be what we wanted if the economy, the world economy had stayed strong and our economy stays strong. We would have done even much better. But I can tell you that with the prevailing economic circumstances that we had, the soldiers had their fair share of the national cake.
There are people who say, why do we need soldiers? We don't go to war, we don't do anything, nobody's coming to invade us. We have soldiers whom we pay every day to just polish their shoes and sit at Burma camp. Why should we maintain an armed forces? As someone who has until recently been the head of the president's ministry at defense, in charge of our soldiers or defense, what would be your counter argument as to why we need armed forces in this country?
So at a point, a country called Burkina thought they didn't need soldiers. Today you cannot walk onto the streets of Burkina in many places of the Burkina simply because maybe they did not pay attention to making sure that soldiers can defend them properly when they need it. At a point, a country called Niger, you have fair idea about issues about Niger, Mali, and many countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, even Senegal, many countries thought a similar way that we may not have needed soldiers, but they regretted it very quickly. The sort of world will find ourselves, and the sort of circumstances will find ourselves, and the human being that we are, if you are found to be weak, you'll be devoured by the stronger person. You do not build a wall because your neighbor is a thief. You do not put electricity around your house because you assume your neighbor is a thief. But you are preventing someone who has a bad mind so that you can stay clear. Remember that at the end of the day, a government's real focus, the first duty of a government is to keep you safe, security, to make sure that you are safe, you are alive, to be able to have what we call a country. A country with a human being is just land, bare land. You must have the human beings to be able to make it a complete country. The duties of the armed forces, as stated in the question or any other place, is to make sure that you have what we call a country and that nobody, whether internal or external, is able to take any part of that country, is able to disturb your citizens and that your citizens remain safe. Who thought that a country called Ukraine will be where they are today? If, for example, they decided strangely that they didn't need soldiers, where would they have been as a country? Well, they would have been part of Russia immediately. They would have been gone. They would have nothing called Ukraine.
So there's a need to always have a standby force as a country.
I even believe that there's a need to have not just the numbers we have, but virtually double the number of soldiers that we have.
Recruit more soldiers.
Recruit more soldiers and make sure that they're stationed in strategic places.
But what will keep them busy?
Soldiers are always busy more than any other person. In fact, one of the busiest people you can find as soldiers, I remember an incident where a lady wrote to me from Kumasi. Okay? She wrote to me to say that, Minister, we're pleading with you. Our husbands are not always with us. They are either deployed to Lebanon or they are deployed to Boko. The next day, he's deployed to that place or he's deployed to that place. The best we can find him is 6 months and then he's gone again. That's the type of life. And I believe that some of them will watch these interviews and interview and listen to me. That's the type of life that some people suffer. either the husbands of soldiers or the wives of soldiers. That's how they suffer.
But we are training soldiers for other countries, for not ourselves.
No,
Lebanon,
no,
Sudan.
we are not training soldiers for other countries. We are training for ourselves first. So when you deploy a soldier from 2BN or 1BN in Michel camp to Boku, for example, we have over 400 soldiers there, and you deploy him, or you deploy him to a mining site, for example, or you deploy him to a conflict area, or you deploy him to any other area, maybe a drug, there's a problem, you deploy that soldier that you are keeping, that soldier that you are keeping him for maybe 3 months. You are deploying within the country. Remember, we have international obligations as well. So if we pledge to send soldiers to Liberia as we did, and you are staying there for 1 year, you are deploying the soldiers not for the other countries, it's for your own country. Because when you are in trouble, other people would also come and assist you.
By our laws, the police keep the peace, maintain law and order on the streets. Soldiers are supposed to be the last resort. And yet, over the past 8 years, we've seen so many soldiers on the streets. People think your government unnecessarily politicized the soldiers. For instance, why were soldiers defending the Electoral Commission chairperson? Why did we see soldiers following the Attorney General at the time? Why were soldiers following the special prosecutor? Can you explain what the rationale was for these things?
I'm maybe surprised that you pick isolated incidents and use them as the mainstay.
Because that's what people spoke about.
We don't have less than 20,000 soldiers. We didn't have 20,000 soldiers following human beings, following politicians or businessmen, or we didn't have that. We have isolated cases. And if we felt that you, Omar Sanda, you are doing a particular job for the people of Ghana and your life depended on or your life was in danger to the extent that we needed soldiers to protect you, I will willingly give you soldiers to protect you.
But that's what the police do.
At a point, yes. No, we did. Police were there as well. At a point, we felt that the Electoral Commissioner needed and still needs soldiers and police to protect her. And
even now?
Yes, and we did. At a point, we felt that some particular individuals who were prosecuting people and their lives were in danger.
So the Attorney General?
Of course. Let me give an example. Somebody walked up to me and says to me that, you Nitiwul, you bent 9 million worth of my excavators. And I said, me? He says, yes. And I said, I've never gone to the bush to burn any excavator. He says, but you didn't burn them. You are the Minister for Defense. And soldiers burn my excavators. I don't know those soldiers, but you, I know.
Ultimately.
But you, I know, because you were the minister. You are just an individual, so I'm able to relate to you. All the point I am making is that that person's life, that me, was in danger. If that person wanted to do me harm, that person will do me harm. Simply because that person knows me. You have gone to court as an Attorney General and jailed people, and your life is in danger.
But he will not be the first Attorney General.
No, we never said he's the first Attorney General.
But he's the first one to have.
But I'm saying to you that he may not be the first Attorney General, but by the advice of state security, he may be the first person that we felt his life was in the danger in which it was, that we thought that it was necessary. If you realize that he used soldiers for some time, they were withdrawn for about 2-3 years and they were brought back. It was not continuous, and they were brought back later on again. It was just to make sure that that person is safe.
And the same applied to the Electoral Commission.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you think that as of now, she still needs soldiers?
I think she even needs soldiers now more than before. Not just soldiers, security around her more than before.
But the question is, when you were Minister for Defense, you had soldiers guarding you, and I believe it has to do with your portfolio. The President had soldiers. Now you are a normal civilian, you are an MP. You will now revert to having a single policeman guarding you.
It's normal.
Okay. What about the Electoral Commission chairperson, or let's even look at the Attorney General, Godfrey Adame? He's now a civilian, not a politician, not a power holder. I'm not sure he has any bodyguard with him now. What happens? Because the point is that you had soldiers when you were in power, power is gone, everything is withdrawn, you feel naked. if you die, that's the time.
No, they knew. No, that's not the time. The new Attorney General takes over the assets and liabilities of the office.
Yeah, but the sins of Godfrey Dami may have not been wiped.
It is not the sense of. It's the sense. I give an example. It's not the sense of Godfrey Dami as an individual.
So it was protected as AG, not
AG.
as
no, not as an individual. It was protected because of the portfolio you were holding. If it was not there, there's no way we're going to do it. I give an example. Somebody sued the armed forces. I was not even aware of the suit. He said I didn't come to court, and he took me for contempt, and contempt was nearly passed for me to be jailed as Minister for Defense, not as Dominic Nitiwul. If I were not Minister for Defense at that time, you were the minister, even though maybe that act may have been committed under me, you were the one who would have gone for contempt, not me, because I was the original person there.
So you stand by soldiers defend.
So I am saying that if there's a need for this government to get soldiers to protect an individual, we should not politicize these things. It's done everywhere. Take it from me. It's done in America. There are certain individuals, the Secret Service. If we had Secret Service in Ghana, I would have used Secret Service, not soldiers. Maybe it's time for us to start using the what we call the Secret Service, the protective unit of that. There may be a combination of soldiers and police, but especially trained for that. We don't have that. So if the police, for example, like the speaker, was using soldiers, at a point we had to withdraw them because in our assessment he didn't need them at that time.
So the question would be, if you withdrew the speaker's soldiers, which was a controversial issue, why would you keep soldiers?
But I told him that in our assessment, my assessment was not just me. The assessment was the assessment of the national security. I'm not saying national security ministry. National security is national security.
Yeah, all of them.
All of us, but material, national, all of us. When I say national security, that's what I mean. That's that assessment I kept receiving every time.
Okay.
That if you, even a journalist, at a point I felt that, at a point I nearly gave soldiers to Anas to protect him, because I felt that his life was in danger. But he said, oh, I'll manage my life. Ask him if you ever meet him. He said, no, I think that, because national security kept giving us a warning that, look, this young man's life may be in danger. And the state offered to do it. I offered to do it.
If this government now thinks that everything is fine, there was actually no real threat against the Electoral Commission chairperson, they withdraw the soldiers, what will be your view?
It's for them to take that decision. They will keep reviewing the security around every individual. It's for them to take that decision.
Let's talk about soldiers in other civilian spaces. So our elections, why did we have soldiers in our election? People get intimidated and scared by simply seeing soldiers. They're happy with the fire service man, the immigration guy, the policeman, but the soldiers, and that was
soldiers have never been directly involved in elections at the polling stations. Not during my time, not during the ND's time. I don't remember, unless in 2000, that I remember soldiers being at polling station and beating people. Remember Kwamna battles when soldiers had to beat him and that kind of stuff. I've never, during my time, all the 8 years I've been, we've never deployed soldiers to the polling stations. Never. Soldiers have always been deployed at the last year. Pre-deployment, that is to make sure that the materials are being carried to the site and everything is the police, and then those in charge of internal security, they do it. Then, during the polling station work itself, that is the voting itself, it's still the same people, police, those are the interior, police, fire service, immigration, prisons, they still do it. Soldiers always get deployed at the collation center, and the same thing happened.
But we saw someone struggling with a soldier.
It was at the collation center.
No, this was actually at the election center.
Can I finish? It was at the collation center.
I think.
I'm coming. It was at the collation centers the soldiers would normally come. But when it comes to voting, and for some reason, people decide to disrupt voting, and the police think that they need soldiers, they will call in reinforcement for soldiers, because the soldiers always have what we call, and always will have a standby team to support them. So if you see any soldier or a group of soldiers move in there, then it means that it is the police who called them to come to resolve a situation, and they will always come. Remember that we don't have enough police to cover every polling station, two or three to cover every polling station. Maybe one per every polling station, yes. But you cannot just deploy the entire Ghana police force just to guide the election. There are other duties they need to do. So you always keep soldiers. If for some reason in very nearby places, in mobile teams. If for some reason something happens and they overwhelm the police, either somebody is trying to misbehave or something, you call in the soldiers to sanitize the station and they continue the process.
As you leave,
they may pick pictures and assume the soldiers are there. We've never deployed soldiers to the police. Never have we done that before.
As you leave office, what would be your own view in terms of the public perception and confidence in the armed forces, where you had soldiers in Wa, we saw what happened. We saw soldiers in Ashaiman, we saw what happened. We saw soldiers in Ejura, we saw what happened. Even Ayawaso West, that one may not necessarily be soldiers, but what would you say is the public confidence rate in the armed forces after 8 years?
Afrobarometer is what we use to judge here. We don't have any other. We have others, but most people believe in the Afrobarometer. Soldiers have always been ranked high. The most respected institution, the most revered institution, and it's never wavered. They are still at the top, even higher than we came to meet it. 2 weeks. This government has been there less than a month. We've had Obuasi incident. We have had even worse than Ashaman at Wale Wale, when people were beaten and laid to. So these incidents would happen. It's not about Nitiwul or Akufado or something. These incidents will happen. And it's not happening to every government. Just within 1 month, less than 1 month, 2 major incidents. You've mentioned 8 years, 2 incidents. But I've given you just 1 month, 2 major incidents that have happened under this new administration. So don't judge a government because we have slips-ups here and there. No. But holistically, what has happened over the 8 years, I can say that the soldiers have been very, very professional, and I'm proud of what the soldiers have done.
But Boko has been a failure for your government, though.
Can't be a failure.
You have not solved it.
No.
And it's still on the agenda for this.
I wish that we solved Boko like how Yendi was resolved. You are not praising them, the previous government for solving Yendi, which was even a more difficult case. But I wish that we were able to solve. That's why I use the word that it's regrettable that we couldn't solve Boko the way we wanted to solve it. But I can tell you that Boko has a long history, a very complex history. You cannot just wish it off over the period. It's not like that. It goes to the core of the tribes, the dignity of the 2 tribes that are jetting over that position. It goes to their core, and that's why you have to take your time to be able to resolve it. But the previous government, we made our case clear as to what we believe were the facts on the ground. Okay. We made our case very clear. Yeah. I did it in Parliament. President said it several times. The Chief Tenancy Minister was on Boko to say it several times. So it's not as if government wavered. Okay. But what I want to explain to you is that it was never right for me to ask soldiers to use maximum force on the citizens of Ghana. No, it's not right. I don't think that it will be right for any government to let soldiers use maximum force on their citizens. Okay. Soldiers could have used maximum force on the citizens of Boko, but I think that it would have been very wrong, it would have been reckless, it would have been not good under democracy for soldiers to be using maximum force on their citizens.
I'll come back and ask you what your advice would be for the new government in dealing with Boko. This is Face to Face on ChannelOne television. When we come back, I'm asking Dominic Nitiwul, the politics around presidential jets, and I think the presidential jet falls under the category of equipment managed by the Ghana Armed Forces. We have a new president now. We saw in the early days he was not using the presidential jet. What's the status with that? And also our facilities or equipment for the armed forces, do we have enough to keep our country safe? And then, of course, I would also talk to you about the new minister, the Honorable Dr. Omani Buama, what his advice would be to him in coming to take over this position as Minister for Defense. Please stay with us. This is Face to Face. You're welcome back. This is Face to Face on ChannelOne television. My name is Omar Rusandam. My guest is the Honorable Dominic Nitiwul, MP Bimbila, former Minister for Defense. Well, before I ask you about the presidential jet, which is one of the controversial, let me ask you about state lands and the allegation that your government appointees dissipated military lands, and there were some demonstrations around Teshi, Chado, those areas. They say when you came, you bought the lands yourselves and just occupied it all over. You are the man in charge of defense. I don't know if you also extended to being in charge of the lands that were owned by the military. What's your comment on that?
First of all, we have not given out any state lands to anybody. I mean, never. We don't do that. We can only do private partnership to some extent, but to sell land to individuals, we can't. But the general question of state lands has to be very holistic. And if there is anybody who has taken lands, if you put the two parties together, the NDC has sold more state lands to private individuals than the NPP.
Really?
Oh, yes.
What are the numbers you're comparing with?
So, I'm not talking about numbers. So, all of them are selling under a policy called infilling. And you can go and make that check. It was under the NDC administration, 1996 to 98, that's when that policy was started, that the British government had left a bungalow sitting, especially in Accra and Kumasi, and Tamale, sitting on 1 acre of land. And so they needed to redevelop those areas. And that's how state lands were given that. The entire cantonments were state lands, what we call Hausa Reserve. You see the entire cantonments through Kanda, almost all part of Kanda, and cantonments, all parts of Chado, they were all state lands. Go and check the people who sold all those lands. They were mostly under the NDC regime that all those lands.
That means that you also sold under this same policy.
I'm just saying to you that if it comes to individual lands, so it's politics that they are doing, nothing else. Any time that they come to power, then they'll make policy. NPP has sold lands, all of them. Have you seen if you go to Under Bridge, it's Legon. You see, if you move along what we call boundary road from the police station, under the pylon, they're not supposed to build there. But then this is sold in the last administration. All of that land, and build up shops. Along the motorway. You've seen it, up to the runabout, where they are doing the washing bay. It's not right. Even aviation lands, all those lands that the NDC sold up, all those things. I'm not saying that in our time, the lands ministry did not lease out lands to people. They did. If I said they didn't, then I'll be lying to you.
But specifically military lands?
No. Military lands are...
So what happened to Chado?
Chado are not military lands.
It's not?
No, Chado itself is not military lands. The only contentious lands that we are juggling, whether it's military lands or not military, are the lands bordering Bema Camp. That is where Che Holmes has built, where the current president is living, right across like that, along that military lands. It was during this president, in the first term, that they declared that there were no military lands. All along, the military thought those lands were theirs. But when he came to power, he got the current AG to write that there were no military lands. And if the military wanted this land, they should look for money and buy. Of course, everybody knows that the military does not have money to buy the land. It's government that should buy.
So if Ora counts for Dominic Nitiwul, they won't find that you have given yourself lands.
I'm not even aware of anybody called Ora, because the state, it must be a constitutional body before I will.
The president set it up.
Well, I don't have a problem, but the president is expected to be the first person that will obey the law. He should just do it properly. I think it's a good thing, but he should do it properly.
So if Oral counts for you, you will not cooperate?
There's nothing called Oral count. I mean, I have nothing to hide. So what is
Oral is a 5-member committee.
I'm saying that what is for me to hide?
Chaired by your colleague for...
What is for me to hide that I won't cooperate with them? There's nothing for me to hide. If I ran a ministry like defense for 8 years, okay, and people think that I have to account to the people of Ghana, why wouldn't I account? Why would I run away?
But you're not scared that, there's change of government, I have to hide.
As I said, hide and do what? If I believe that I've done something wrong, I'll be hiding.
Do you feel all your colleagues feel the same?
I don't know. I can't speak for somebody. But all I'm saying is that if I believe that I have something to hide, then I'll be feeling jittery and I'll be hiding. But I don't have anything to hide. I've not deliberately done anything fishy. We are human beings. We can make mistakes. But I've never in my life, sitting there as Minister for Defense, done anything fishy. Never. Not once. Did I say that I have a friend, I'm selling land to him, or somebody has come and go to sell military lands for him? If for anything, I have fought against people who are trying to buy military lands, sometimes being hated for it. But
your own colleagues?
Not colleagues. I said being hated for it, but I stood my grounds. I said, no, it's wrong to sell lands, especially when the armed forces don't have land to build. Look, a third of our soldiers are living in town, which I find abnormal. I don't think it's right for the soldiers to be living in town. When you want to mobilize soldiers to go and fight, you would need all of them living in the barracks. So for me to go to Bema Camp and decide to sell Bemakam lands or sell state land that soldiers will need to be able to lay their heads. I think it was terribly wrong.
Let's talk about the presidential jet. Is it under the Ministry of Defense or which ministry?
So if the president wants to travel with the presidential jet, normally the chief of staff is supposed to write to the minister to release it.
Minister for Defense?
For Defense.
So it's actually under your care?
It's part of the communication squadron.
Okay.
Number 4 communication squadron of the Ghana Air Force.
So our Air Force runs our presidential jet?
It's the Air Force that runs.
What's the status of our presidential jet?
Oh, the current one is serviceable.
The one we are...
Yes. We worked on it. It took us almost 8 months to refit it well, and it's working.
So it was not good for some time?
It had problems. It had engine problems. Not engine, it had fuel problems. It had several things. It was deceiving the engine that it was not good and that kind of stuff. The fuel was not moving well. And so it was a bit dangerous to be using, especially for long haul. And I made it in Parliament for long haul journeys. But I think it's been worked on. It came back in April, and since then, the former president from April, he was using it for long journeys. And they shouldn't.
Is it not simply too old? Should we not replace it?
I think this government has to take a decision to determine what they need to do. The Air Force assets are very light, and I don't want to go into details for security reasons.
Okay. Where the Air Force assets include helicopters.
The real Air Force is a fighting force that fights in the air. That's the duty of Air Force.
So military jets.
The Army fights on the ground. The Air Force fights in the air, and the Navy fights on water. So if you have an Air Force, you have to give it the tools to be able to work. The soldiers are not just what you see. Those in camouflage are supposed to be the army, but of course now everybody wears camouflage. But the real camouflage is for you to hide in forests. And then also the brown camouflage is for you to hide in the desert, sand. So you see the green type of camouflage we have, so that when they mix in a forest, green area, you cannot find the person. You see brown type of camouflage. When you lie in the desert and pour sand on yourself, you cannot see. That's a wet camouflage. So camouflage is a fighting uniform. It's not to be moved around. But because of the impression that Ghanaians had about soldiers, the aura of soldiers, every organization, including all manner of people, security, para-security, everybody want to wear camouflage. But camouflage is a fighting uniform. I'm coming. Okay. So the army is a land fighting force. The Air Force is expected to fight up there. So they have everything that will enable them to fight out there. That's why I said their assets are light. And if the government really wants to protect this nation well, they need to take a decision. But unfortunately, they've made so much politics about acquisition of Air Force assets. I don't know how they're going to do it.
If today they came to you to ask you, Nitiwul, you'll be Minister for Defense, we want to buy a new presidential jet, what would be your advice?
It's not about presidential jet. I think that they should look at it holistically, Air Force assets. It's not just presidential jet.
So you would sanction...
My principle has been the same, that I will not politicize armed forces asset acquisition.
And you are including the president. I want you to speak specifically to presidential jet, which is part of
I'm saying to you, it's too political for me to be talking about just a presidential jet.
Okay.
Somebody will take it out of context and say, oh, he says go and buy presidential jet. That's not what I'm saying.
But if they are going to buy a pool,
I am saying that I will not oppose anybody who wants to re-equip our armed forces, whether it's Air Force, whether it's Army, or whether it is Navy. I will never oppose it, because I know the value of it.
And its commander-in-chief,
I know that. That's why I say I know the value of those things. So I will never oppose it.
So another issue was, why were you at the time having the president fly in private jets and all those allegations about baffing in the air when we had the presidential jet sitting at the tarmac? Would you say that that was a big issue that you failed to deal with as a government?
I don't know why anybody would say that. I said it before, let me repeat.
You said it was just for 8 months that it went for repairs?
No, but it had problems before. We took it for repairs and it took 8 months. I didn't say only for 8. I said we took it and it had 8 months. Okay. But President Akufo-Addo was using the presidential jet before. He used it for 4 years prior to 2021 or 2022 when he started developing that problem. It's not as if the 8 years he never used it. The entire 4 years he was using that jet. And after 2021, when we started having all these problems and we needed to take it for repair in 2023 and that kind of stuff, 2022 we took it for repair and that kind of stuff, he was always using it. I say to you that don't listen to propaganda. When people decide to do propaganda about bathing the air and that kind of stuff, that's propaganda. I think that we should not be listening to propaganda. President Mahama rented jets, private jets, to travel whenever this presidential jet was not available.
Now or when he was president?
When he was president, 2013 to 2016.
Okay.
And I will not fault him for doing that. I just give you an example. If you have a state visit to South Africa, for example, where the president normally lands at the military base, they have a military base where you land, or any other country where you normally will not land. If you go to Dubai, you are not most likely to land at the main civilian airport. If you have a state visit in Kenya, you are likely not to land at the civilian airport. You will land at normally the military base, where they will give you all the salutes, because remember, a state visit, an official visit, have their will. And your presidential jet were to suddenly develop a fault. What will you do? Will you advise the president to jump on Kenya Airways for that state visit? How would the Kenyan people look at Ghana? So these are questions that we should be asking ourselves to find out. I don't think, I've always said that Akufo-Addo never used any state asset for his private business. Anytime the former president needed to travel out of this country, okay, and it was for his own private things, he always went on commercial flights. He's traveled several times on Emirates. He's traveled several times to America before. He's traveled several times to Qatar. He's traveled British Airways into countless occasions that he went on British Airways for his private business. Sometimes even government business. He used commercial.
So there's nothing wrong then if John Mahama travels with Ibrahim Mahama's jet, is there?
There's everything wrong if our jet is serviceable and he travels with Ibrahim's jet.
Why?
Because ours is working.
So ours was working as of the day he was sworn in.
It was working. It was working.
But
the president, Akufo-Addo, had used it and was using it even before. He used it, for example, on 23rd to Takrade.
In December.
I was with him. He used it on 29th to Kumasi to go and commission Sewa hospital. And he used it several times. Even like 2 days to the hand, he used the military jet. So it was serviceable. That is the problem I had. It is not about using Ibrahim's jet. The problem I had is that they had done too much politicking with jet, private jet, to the extent that it was not difficult to be able to even use your own jet.
But there's a new government, there's a new president. They have to go and check and fumigate the craft. If do some prayer,
I don't have problems
from you. So maybe that's why they need.
I don't have a problem
also
with that.
Also check whether the jet is physically.
I don't have a problem with that. When I went to the Ministry of Defense, I never changed my staff. In fact, when I came here first as Minister for Deputy Minority Leader in 2013 to 2016, I never changed my staff. I never changed my staff. You see the two ladies who are sitting out there? They worked with me. They had to work with the previous deputy leader, Ambrose Derry, before. And when I came, immediately they worked with me. I never changed them. Today I am back. I'm not even a deputy leader. They are always here. They have offices, but they are always here. It's about how you, the human being, you treat people.
Okay.
When I went to the Ministry of Defense, I never changed anybody because they worked under Kumbo or Woyongo. They were there before I came to meet them. I never changed a single one of them. Never. Okay. I'm giving you this. I kept them. So if a new government comes, and I never change chair, I never change anything. If a new government comes and they think that maybe it's superstition or something, they have to claim, pray, and do that, that's their cup of tea. But all I say to the people of Ghana is that at the time he was using his brother's jet, our jet could fly, it was in good condition, it could fly. That's all I said to the people.
Dr. Edward Amani-Boama is a man John Dramani Mahama, the president, wants to be his Minister for Defense. What's your view?
I think he in this election, for example, he did a pretty good job from the schedule he was given, and he comes across as someone who doesn't rub it into other people's faces and noses, but has a decent way of doing his job. I believe he will succeed in that place. So
you are happy? Okay, you don't think he's a problem? He will fit in properly.
I think
he'll be a good successor.
I think he will be. I think it was a good choice.
What would be your advice to him? What should be the pitfalls that he should avoid? What are the key things he needs to do? He's going to handle a very sensitive area.
Don't think that you have the political power and the respect of the soldiers, whether they are officers or they are non-commissioned officers. Just earn their respect.
How would you, and when you enter there as a civilian who's not been a soldier before, what do you have to do? That's
why I say earn their respect. You know how you have to earn people's respect. So you are moving with them in whatever you do. You work with them in whatever you do. you get things done by moving with them gradually into what you are looking for. You are not forcing whatever you do. This, don't do this. I don't want that. I don't. It's wrong.
What would be your advice about promotions? Because one of the things that Akufo-Addo, your former boss, I'm not sure, maybe still your boss, was accused of was promotions that they thought were not right. So, for instance, the man who was his bodyguard was promoted to become head of, was it the army? Is that something that, okay, so people are criticizing that. What do you say to critics who say that it was unfair?
No, he was very, very much qualified at that time. You should check where his mates are, and you will understand that he was very much qualified at that time. What we never did was to put unqualified people. What we never did was to say, because we come from this, we will not promote you, or because we associate with this party, or we believe that maybe you don't like us, or you have said something. We never did. There are people who were kept unpromoted for 12 years under the previous regime, and I ensured that they promoted them because I didn't see the reason why. They were qualified, their confidential reports were good, there was nothing wrong with them, and so we're very fair in promoting people. So for promotions, all I will say to him is that you are the minister. The vice president is the chair of the Armed Forces Council. Make sure promotions are fair and firm. No favors because you know that person or you don't know that person. Just be fair to everybody. If you are fair to everybody, trust me, the soldiers will say it. Otherwise, in the 8 years, you will have heard the murmuring from Bemakam himself. You will have heard the murmuring from Kamina or from 2BN or 1BN or 4BN. You have heard the murmuring from those areas, or 6BN or 7. You have heard the murmurings from those areas, under barracks or something. If you didn't hear those murmurings, it is because we're firm, we're fair, and we did things right.
How should the new minister approach Burkina Faso, Niger? We already have seen that the president has appointed someone for the Sahelian region. What do you make of that, Colonel Larry Bevlolati?
So the terrorist search is moving southwards. He should be able to look at it from that angle and make sure he keeps an eye on what is happening at the northern frontier. We've been building these FOBs. They are not done. Soldiers are expected to start moving into them this year. Most of them are almost complete, 90%. A few of them are still 50%. But he should make sure that he keeps an eye on what is happening at the northern border. It's very important. He should also keep an eye on our coastal waters. It's also very important. And for Boko, he should just be firm and fair, and then build confidence on both sides of the aisle. If they take sides, it's going to give them problems.
What do you think of Larry Bevlolati's appointment?
I think he's one of the most experienced people in terms of this job that he's doing. He held a similar post around Algeria,
Tunisia, Morocco.
So he knows. I believe that he will do a good job. Maybe I thought he would have worked better at national security area, but of course that's not been given to him.
When we come back, I'm going to talk more politics, but is there anything you regret doing when you were Minister for Defense in relation to defending this nation, deployment of soldiers? Is there anything you think you would have done better?
I wish that we were able to get more access for the Air Force and Navy. I wish we were able to do that.
What about the closure of the borders, that accusation that you were deliberately letting NDC people out of the borders to come?
We don't know. NDC are not supposed to have people across the border, or NPP
who have gone to do business on election day, for instance, you close the border. Do you think something?
We have always closed borders. It's not just the first time that Ghana has closed.
Why should we
borders.
Close borders for elections?
I'm coming. Every nation does it. You'll be unwise not to close your borders, because you are concentrating on elections. You want to make sure your nation is safe. So you need to make sure that as you are going through election, where everybody is focused, people don't take advantage of it. It's not my for security reasons. It has nothing to do with whether somebody is coming across the border or not coming across the border. If you don't file your name on the register, you cannot vote. If you find your name on the register, it simply means that you are genuinely qualified.
So that's why you shouldn't close the border.
I'm coming, genuinely qualified to vote. So we are not closing border because of elections. No, not at all. Anybody who wants to vote doesn't come on election day. If somebody, for example, really wants to vote, he might not even come on election day. So nobody's closing border for the sake of that. No. In any case, you have today 18-point-something million people who are going to vote. Is that not right? Mm-hmm. Why will I close the border when less than maybe 500,000 people may be sitting, or 1 million people may be sitting across the border? The people here are enough to determine my fate. So that's not it, not at all.
This is Face to Face on ChannelOne TV. My guest is Dominic Nitiwul. He is former Minister for Defense, also former leader of this house, which is what I'm going to come back to. The defeat they suffered in Parliament, aside what they suffered at the Jubilee House, How are they going to deal with that? How are they going to regroup and fight on? Are they going to be any significant? They've been called the mini minority or micro minority, which the leader has disagreed with. How do they reckon they can hold this government to task considering their numbers? Please stay with us. Yeah, welcome back. This is Face to Face on ChannelOne TV. My name is Umaru Sandabado and my guest is Honorable Dominic Nitiwul. Honorable, welcome back to Parliament. I'm sure you were not very active in Parliament for obvious reasons, have to go and help with the executive. What is your view, even though you benefited from it? Should we amend the constitution to say that people who are MPs should remain MPs, people who are in the executive become executive? Or you think this hybrid system we run is good?
I was always in Parliament, so I kept coming to Parliament regularly, even with my heavy schedule at the Ministry of Defense. So during the time President Mills set up the Constitutional Review Program, I appeared before them. And I made a point that we needed to change the Constitution to accommodate two things. One was clearly to take away this hybrid system. And I haven't changed my mind on it.
So for you, it should be strict executive, strict parliament.
So that parliament can grow as an institution. That's the first thing. The second thing I also said was that we must have a parliament of 200 MPs.
So reduce it.
For the next 100 years, we should have a parliament of 200 MPs who can be directly elected, and another 100 MPs that should be awarded on proportional basis, so that if the parties believe that there are people who really can assist them in Parliament, but for whatever reason they cannot win an election, the party can get those people into Parliament. So in today's term, out of the 100 MPs, NDC will have gotten maybe 56 because they have 56%. MPP 41 because they have 41%. Then the rest shared among those who who got all that they need to get, depending on how they go about things.
I'm not sure anyone practices this. That
Germans do that.
Appoint MPs.
Yes, they do that.
And so is it?
I think South Africa also does similar thing. They do that. It's able to balance, because you have some of the best brains leaving Parliament for no reason. Why should Sergio Mensah be outside Parliament, for example? You think that if he had a system, he would not be in Parliament?
The stress of going through primaries.
Not just primaries. You should. So that you don't just create constituencies for the sake of creating constituencies. No. We should not have more than 200 MPs, and then we have these 100 MPs that the party can award, who are awarded to the party, so that they are in Parliament together. They do, so that people do all, the Parliament can be very, very strong. I don't believe in the hybrid system.
Even though you benefited from it, you don't think it's...
No, I still don't believe in it.
But there are many people who think if you want to be a minister, the first thing is go to Parliament.
It is because of the hybrid system. So people are not really interested in being MPs. They want to be ministers. And so they jump to Parliament. They get disappointed because they are not appointed. And they don't come to Parliament any longer. And you will see it very soon.
It's likely to affect this.
Trust me. We'll start quorum for quorum soon, because of the 180-something members. They will stop coming to Parliament. They'll be disappointed. They will stop coming to Parliament. Along the line, I'll tell you.
Really?
Yeah, they will.
It means that you see a problem for the NDC.
It has started coming. It has started where they have less than 60 members sitting down there. And it will be worse as we go on.
But can you really hold this government to task with your numbers, with your micro minority?
People misunderstand the role of Parliament. Parliament is not the numbers. If you want to change constitution or do other things, you may need those huge numbers. But effectiveness is the key word. It's not the numbers. And you can have 20 MPs who are more effective than 100 MPs. So it's about effectiveness. Your ability to deliver and do your work well. It's as simple as that. It's not the huge numbers that you have. It's important to have huge numbers because of voting. But when it comes to the work of Parliament, it's not the numbers that do the work.
There are many people who think this current committee of appointments is treating the nominees with kid gloves. What's your view?
I don't want to criticize them. I go there once a while to assist them, but I don't want to criticize them. I'll leave that to the public to judge.
But what's your view?
I'll leave that to the public to judge. But I find it curious that within 1 hour, 2 hours, most of the nominees are okay, and they go and
we see a lot of praise singing. Maybe it's something you guys do in Parliament.
We grilled spill for 6 hours, and we wanted to do more than that. Maybe a few of them may go through that. Maybe a few maybe very soon you start seeing a few of them going through that.
You don't think that is because your side possibly is compromised? There are allegations like that flying around.
It's not possible to compromise the type of MPs we have from outside. It's simply not possible.
They are young, they are new.
Trust me, it's simply not possible.
They don't have positions.
No, it's simply not possible.
Let's talk about your defeat. The North, what happened? It was devastating, the defeat you suffered.
I was very sad because I was the coordinator for the campaign in the North. I was very, very sad that it happened like that. And I'm still not happy that it happened like that. It's not been fair to Baumia as an individual. He worked so hard. We all worked so hard. But he particularly worked so hard. I don't remember anybody who has worked very hard like that, like what he did. So I would say it's not been fair. I made them to do 3 polls. None came out with this type of results.
So you didn't see this defeat coming?
I said none. We knew that we had problems. We knew that in Greater Accra we had problems. We knew that in Ashanti we had problems. Because some people were saying they won't come out and vote, but not to this scale that we saw. But it also serves as a lesson that in politics in Ghana, anything is possible. So we should find a way of ensuring that next time we do our work well. The good news is that they didn't come out to vote for the NDC. They just simply stayed home. So it's easy. It's not easy, but it is for us. It means there are still people we can go and talk to and they will listen. It depends on how we go our work. The North in particular was very, very disappointing, especially when we're believing from the polls that we will get up to 30 MPs and we got 10. I think that is very disappointing, and I think it only shows that next time we have to do our work well, and we have to make sure that whatever we went wrong, we do our work well. We are doing extensive research, not just by the party, by all organs, parliamentary candidates, myself, all of us are doing extensive research to find out exactly what happened. Even in my constituency, the turnout was around 77%. It's lower than 2020. And I have to find out exactly why some people decided that they were not going to vote. It's not because of lack of development. I won handsomely, but still a lot of people decided they would not vote. So we have to find out exactly why our own supporters decide that they're not going to vote. People can have all the views that they're looking for, but for me, the important thing is to go on the ground and find out what really happened.
You mentioned Dr. Baumia's name. What do you think is his future based on what happened in the election in your party?
I thought that is for him to take. I'm not going to say anything and tell him do this or don't do that.
Do you think he was the best candidate you could have put forth as a party?
At the time we picked him, he was the best candidate. I don't think there was any doubt about it, that he was the best candidate. Everybody agreed and still agreed that he was the best candidate. Look, unless you have not moved with him, unless you have not listened to him, he has a very good heart and he has a good mind for the people of Ghana. Trust me, he has very good intentions for the people of Ghana. People misunderstand maybe because of his tribe or the religion or where he comes from, but that man has very good intentions for the people of Ghana. You
think he's a good candidate to put up again?
I'm saying God ultimately will judge all of us. I don't want to preempt what he will do or he will not do, but God ultimately will judge. He's the better judge. Akufo-Addo ran 3 times, finally became president. Joe Mama has run 3 times, finally he has become president. He became president before, but he had to run 3 more times before he became president. Kufuor ran twice before he became president. Mills ran about 3 times before he became president. Let's wait and see what fate and God will judge. Look, the Almighty that we serve, my brother, knows what He's planned for all of us. And you can't change the destiny of any individual. If the destiny of God is that Baumia will become president, he will become president. If the destiny of God is that he won't become president, there's nothing we can do about it.
There's a view that it's your boss who caused him the defeat. What's your view on that?
Oh, no, not at all. No, I will never put the blame on
that Akufo-Addo's governance is what resulted in...
No, not at all. I mean, it's like saying that because of Rollins, that's why Mills lost. Or saying that Akufo-Addo lost because of Kufuor. Or say, no, please, I think I don't want to go to that.
Do you think your running mate was best fit for the role, your colleague from Ensha?
I would always defer and respect the judgment of the presidential candidate. No presidential candidate just goes around to pick people because he wants to pick them. You reflect deeply, you pray, you consult your ancestors, you consult everybody around before you will pick people. And so if he picked him, he was the best at the time that he picked him.
In wrapping up,
and I will support whoever the presidential candidate picks, and I believe that God will vindicate MPP at the end of the day.
In wrapping up, what's the future of Dominic Nitiwul in Parliament, outside Parliament?
I'm representing the people of Bimbla for the next 4 years, and that's what I want to take one step at a time. I'm representing the people of Bimbla for the next 4 years. I'll do my best for Ghana. I'll do my best for my people. I'll do my best for the party, and let's see what God will do for us.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
That's the former Minister for Defense, Member of Parliament for Bimbla, the Honorable Dominic Nitiwul, and I'd like to remind him as a former teacher which profession he really cherishes. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadou. I am a journalist, once a cowboy, so call me cowboy journalist. We'll be back again next week with Face to Face on Channel One Television.